Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yahya. Thanks for that introduction, Muazzam. I'm going to start off by doing a quick introduction of kind of my background. Then I'm going to talk about the incident that happened at UCL on campus that has impacted and kind of changed my way of thinking in the long term. And then I'm going to talk about my final message to all of you, be it teachers, be it parents, be it students, or be it even the children that we have here. So, an introduction to myself. My name is Yahya. I was born in Canada, lived most of my life in the United Kingdom. I started doing some charity work early on. That was my first kind of insight into activism when I was in A-levels. And then as I went into university, I started doing Palestinian activism, whilst also being quite active on other causes, be it Bangladesh, refugees in Jordan, Syria, and so on. So when I was in my third year of medical school, I got into a very, very difficult situation. I was the president of the Friends of Palestine Society at that time. And an Israeli soldier was invited by the Israeli group to come and speak. This soldier, his name is Hen Mazik, he was part of the Kogat unit. This unit is involved in actually having a presence on the ground in the West Bank, constructing checkpoints, and part of the apartheid system that exists within the West Bank. He actually worked in Khalil, Hebron. So we decided to exercise our right to freedom of expression and speech. And we organized a huge protest up to around 200 students. And this was in around December, I think, 2016. And we were able to make our voice heard to the point where, because we were so big in number and the people attending that event were so small in number, that eventually he was escorted out by police because he felt unsafe. And we were able to go home feeling that we had, achieved our purpose of spreading awareness to everyone on campus that, alhamdulillah, this is the kind of response that we will have when you bring a soldier to our campus, a soldier who is part of an organization that commits war crimes against Palestinian people. Now, we went to bed that night feeling very proud of ourselves. The next day, we woke up to what I call a media massacre. And to this day, it still affects me. So we woke up to news regarding what had taken place that evening about violent protests and anti-Semitic. In fact, one of the articles online compared me to the Nazi military and said that we had barricaded the Jews in a room as if we were in the Warsaw ghetto. That was and you can find that article online to this day, and it names me as well. So when I saw all of that stuff, I was very, very scared. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I didn't know what's going to happen to my future career. I didn't know what's going to happen to my medicine. I didn't even know if I would even be able to continue studying at UCL. And so we began the fight back, the pushback, and we started seeking advice from other Muslim organizations, asking them what is the best course of action we should take, Muslim organization and Palestinian organizations. Eventually, we were led by two organizations, the PSC and War on Want, and we were given advice, personal advice, regarding how to respond on the media. We tried our best through our connections to write articles back and expose the video footage that we took, proving that there was no violence, and it was a very peaceful protest in general. But unfortunately, the Israeli activist groups had pressured the university through the Board of Deputies of Jews, I think they're called Jewish Board of Deputies. They had convinced the university that at least someone needed to be punished. And I was the quote-unquote leader of that protest, so there was me and 4 other people that they had decided to put into this investigation. We were investigated for 1.5 years. So we were in disciplinary hearing where we did not know what the outcome would be. Mind you, we're studying. 3 of us were medics, 2 of us were studying physics, I think. The other 2 were doing physics. So we were busy with our studies, whilst at the same time having to juggle this okay, the prosecution has submitted evidence saying that you're an anti-Semite, please submit your evidence saying that you weren't. Prosecution has submitted evidence saying that you have done this and this and this and you were violent in the protest, please submit your evidence that you weren't. And it was a back and forth consistently until eventually we finally got given a disciplinary hearing date. And I was in my 4th year of medical school at that time, early 4th year. And so they told us that UCL was going to have a panel of people who will listen to our side, tell us what the prosecution is, and we would have to defend ourselves. When seeking advice, everyone started telling us this is what we had to do if we wanted to stay clear and in the clean. You were going to go into that room, you're going to take a slap on your hand, and you're going to say sorry. For what? You were going to say sorry because your intention wasn't any violence, wasn't to cause any outrage, and you just want to continue your studies and you don't have any issue. You know, this is not your intentions were far from what actually happened. But what did we do wrong? And so I completely disagreed with this strategy and said, I'm not apologizing. There is nothing to apologize for. I stood up for myself and everyone else did the same. We shouldn't be apologizing for something we did not do. We did not commit any violence. We didn't do anything wrong. So only one other brother took the same approach as me and said, you know what, Yahya, I'm going to do the same thing. I don't think there's anything to apologize for. And we went into that room, obviously individually, and the prosecution filed its case, said everything that it claimed that I did, and then I was given a chance to speak. I told them, sorry, I don't apologize. You don't understand what it's like to be a Palestinian, to get phone calls from family back in Gaza saying your cousin was killed, your other cousin was killed. Of course, I didn't grow up with them, so I don't have a strong connection with them. So the emotional bond is not as tight, but these are your blood being killed. You don't know what it's like to have to then go to university and see someone from the Israeli army come and talk about how peaceful Israel is, how Israel is so good to the Palestinian people in the West Bank, and how they promote schools and education and collaboration and cooperation when they're busy dropping bombs on my people back home in Gaza. So I made that very clear in the disciplinary, and I told them, I'm not going to apologize. What makes UCL great, what makes this country great, you claim, is freedom of expression. We can speak our views. And I said nothing to incite hatred. Rather, I said the truth. This man is part of a criminal organization. To me, they're criminals. To you, they might not. To him, they might not. To some Zionists, they might not seem to be criminals. To me, they're criminals. They've killed my cousins. My cousin was 16 years old. He was a second cousin of mine. He was playing football in outside the hospital in the kind of the park. And he was killed. He was 16 years old. So to me, they're criminals. And I have a right to go out and say, I think they're criminals, and I don't want them speaking on my campus. I didn't go and grab the soldier and say, you're not allowed to speak. I said what I think. I don't think you should be speaking. I don't think you have a right to speak on campus. But I'm outside the room and I'm protesting, so I did nothing wrong. And alhamdulillah, the prosecutor himself, who was also UCL, who I think he just had to represent the prosecution, he then said, to be honest, I also want to add more evidence to this. And he said, Yahya, I kind of spoke to the security that were involved, and I also spoke to some of the other students that were involved. Yahya was seen on footage constantly speaking to security, to Palestinian students, and to the Israeli students, ensuring that there was a constant peaceful process going on. So that is something I'd like to put out there. And then they told me to leave the room, and I came back and they told me, alhamdulillah, every single allegation was dropped. How did that affect me moving forward and my message? So how did it affect me moving forward? Alhamdulillah, I learned a lot from that experience. I learned that no matter what, you need to make sure you stand to your principles and you stand to what you believe is the right thing to do. And ultimately, that comes back to our deen, what Islam teaches us. And so, no matter what happens, no matter what situation you're put in, don't capitulate. Don't put yourself in a situation where don't ever feel like the situation will put you in a position where you feel like you need to compromise who you are or what your principles are just to please others. You stay true to yourself. I went on to finish my medical degree at UCL, alhamdulillah. I worked 2 years as a doctor in Wales, and I even applied to take a kind of year out, because medicine's been a bit tough. Take a year out, I wanted to learn more about healthcare projects and how to develop healthcare abroad as a junior associate, as a consultant. And throughout that process, I always thought about how perhaps my Palestinian activism might affect me. You just need to Google my name, and you will see articles, good and bad, about what I've done. But alhamdulillah, no matter what, here I am continuing my path, and I'm very happy with being able to kind of keep my identity and keep my principles. One incident that did happen, that the only incident I can think of that has affected me, is when me and my wife first moved to Cardiff. We were looking for properties, and one property, it was difficult to get a property. We finally got one, put a deposit on it. SubhanAllah, my wife already had a bad feeling about this property. She was like, maybe we could find somewhere else. But I said, look, there's no other options, let's just go ahead. We went. On our way to go pick up the keys, I had paid the holding deposit. The agency called me and told me the landlady, who is from Richmond here in London, the landlady had Googled your name, and she does not feel comfortable giving you the property because of your problematic, sure it was several years ago, but your activity is a bit problematic for her. You're a bit of a troublemaker. Obviously, I was really upset and angry at the time, but alhamdulillah, we ended up in a better place, in a better property, actually in the better properties right next to that place, with better facilities. So alhamdulillah I did that. Alhamdulillah that she rejected me and my wife. Alhamdulillah. At the end of the day, you stay true to yourself, and wallah al-azim, I know Allah will protect us. Whatever our qadr is, whatever is written for us, it will be good for us, as long as we follow His way and follow our principles. And Palestine is a guiding light for us all, because Palestine was so important. It was our first qibla, al-Quds, and ultimately it is an issue that ties the rest of the ummah, all the problems in the ummah. There are historians who said that when Palestine was a piece of place, it was in peace, when the history of Palestine was in peace, the rest of the world was in peace. And when there was war and destruction in Palestine, war and destruction followed the rest of the world. It is a crucial center point to history, to our religion, to two other main religions. It is such an important part of our deen, and we need to ensure that we utilize whatever organizations exist to propagate the message against the oppression that occurs there.